What a cracking little van that is. And that's the other thing that's interesting about old lorries. Isn't that just a stunning, stunning old lorry? With the little chrome strips on.
That's lovely.
Cool. Also in BRS livery. Another one behind that. So effectively that's the estate car version of the PV544. Welcome to Old Classic Car, and today we are down at the British Motor Museum at Gaydon. Well, I say we, I'm flying solo today, so I'm afraid it's just me. But look what we've parked up next to. This stunning, stunning little Mercedes-Benz. Now, we've seen this one down at the NEC before now. I can't quite remember the model number of it, but it's a phenomenal little car. Just look at that. Like I say, this is a show for classic lorries, trucks, pickup trucks and vans. But the first thing that we see is this stunning, stunning little Mercedes-Benz, rear-engined Mercedes-Benz. What a little Bobby Dazzler that is. Good lordy. Concours of Elegance, Hampton Court Palace. Look at those little semaphore indicators as well. Wow. We're not even in the show yet, and I'm already very, very excited. Looks like it may have got a little warm, because it's a warm old day today. Predicting temperatures in the high 20s, which, trust me, if you're not in the UK, that is quite a high temperature. But just look at what a gorgeous car. Like I say, we saw this one. I saw this one down at the NEC Classic Car Show a year or two back, which was great. But seeing cars indoors is not the same as seeing them outside in the sunlight. And just, yeah, what an incredible little car that is. I'll look up the registration number, UXS535, and just pop a little bit of extra information on the screen for you. But yeah, isn't that just incredible? I can't quite see inside. Lots of cooling louvers in the rear quarter here, just to cool the engines. Very similar in that respect to the 4CV. Ours has got air intakes let into the rear mudguards, and this is obviously using a similar approach. But wow, what an incredible little car that is. Anyway, we're a little bit early still, so we will have a quick drink, wander over and see what classic lorries and other commercial vehicles are here today at Gaydon. It's about 10 o'clock and we're one of the first ones through the gate. And what should we see first of all? But this magnificent Leyland, with a livery of W.G. Pyatt & Sons of Cheadle, Stoke-on-Trent. Yeah, a Leyland Beaver. What age is that one, I wonder? I think we will have to look at the registration of that one. Wow, what a cracking old lorry that is. Of course, if I get really stuck today, I have these with me. The I Spy Road Transport. Not just that, which has a lovely Commer transporter on the front. We also have the Ian Allen ABC book of British lorries. So between them, I'm sure we won't go too far wrong. And as ever, while we try and get an overall view of the show in its entirety, we will be prioritising the older trucks and lorries here today, including this fantastic Leyland. I've got a bit of a thing for old fuel gauges as well on the side of the tanks, because even those are very stylish, I always think. Yeah. Well, if that's a sign of what the show's going to be like, we're in for a good day, I think. Would you take a look at that? A lovely little Thames. Well, I say Thames, it's actually badged up as Ford and Thames. So I'm guessing it's sort of a transitional time. We often see E83Ws, but this is the E88W. What a cracking little van that is. So stylish. Look at the shape of that grille. The way it just sort of curves in. And you've got the radiator filler there incorporated within the strip on the top there. Yeah, that's lovely, that is. Interesting how the starting handle's offset slightly, as on the E83W vans and pickups. So this is sort of semi-forward control, I'm guessing. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Someone asked if I was going to do any videos imminently about classic lorries, vans and pickup trucks, so here you go. Wow, there you go, Ford E88W. I promise I didn't look at that first. Yeah, isn't that just glorious? Old lorries, just wonderful. Okay, well, next to the E88W we have the first Bedford of the day. So it's like a drop side truck, this one. You got the drop side body on the back here, so these sides hinge down. You got a fixed board at the front there, and the sides drop down, as does the tailgate at the back, of course. And if you've watched any of the videos I've done on old lorries before now, you do know that I'm a fan of proper old sign writing. You can see where the brush marks are and so on, which is altogether much more agreeable than stick-on vinyl lettering, in my opinion. Much more appropriate for a proper old lorry like this Bedford. Wow, just look how clean that is. Neil Bartlett Haulage Limited. The Bedford Drivers Club badge on the front there. Perkins diesel powered.
I was hoping Neil were going to be here.
From the same fleet, another Bedford. This one on a 64 registration. Some of my favourite old vehicles of all are these beautiful bonneted Bedfords here. Look at this PCV 350. I'm guessing that's a livestock body on the back of that one. And that's the other thing that's interesting about old lorries. You get all sorts of different bodies on them. So you could have a whole row of maybe what is this, an O series Bedford perhaps. You can have a whole row of them and they all look totally different to each other, and that's what's the beauty about them. They all have a different story, often different liveries, and then, as in this case, different body. But what a beauty that is. I love these. Again, with the Bedford Drivers Club badge on the front and Perkins diesel power. What a characterful old girl that is. We've got another badge on the front here for RHA, the Road Haulage Association. The roads are yours, use them. Never seen one of those before. Going to have a quick peek round the back. So is this for livestock or horses? I'm not quite sure, but it's going to be something like that. Old livestock bodies used to rot out like crazy because, of course, if you're carrying sheep or cattle or whatever animals in the back there, they do like to leave their mark on the floors, and that can lead to the floors rotting out very, very quickly indeed. Again, from the same fleet as those two other Bedfords, and again with wonderful old sign writing on it. Just beautifully turned out. I'm not sure how busy it'll be here today. This is the first day of a 2-day show here down at Gaydon in sunny Warwickshire. I've not been here for many, many years. There always used to be a great turnout of lorries, vans and so on. It'll be interesting to see what actually turns up today. I'm assuming there'll still be some people turning up today. It's only just gone 10 o'clock, so I would imagine there are probably a few more en route, so we'll try and do our best, or I will try and do my best to cover all the interesting lorries that do turn up. Unfortunately, I can't come back here tomorrow, so we'll just see what's here today on the Saturday. Over here, somewhat newer, is this AEC Mammoth Major on an H plate. So what's that, about 1970 or thereabouts? The style of these old lorries have changed significantly by this point in time. But if that is 1970, that's what? That's over 50 years old now. It's got some disguised living accommodation on the back there as well. Very cunning. It looks like the body of an old caravan with double glazed windows just hiding away on the back there, covered by an old green tarp. And that's just perfect for an old rally like this. Next to that, the first of what I'm sure will be many, many ERFs, this an EC11. Over here we've got a Gardner-powered Guy Invincible. That's on a C registration, so that puts this one at 1965. And if I consult my Ian Allen ABC book of British lorries, it tells us that Guy Motors Limited was based in Wolverhampton. So this hasn't come too far today, but of course it could be based anywhere now. But yeah, built in Wolverhampton in 1965. And it's got the very distinctive Guy Indian there on the front. Feathers in our cap. Often you see those on the front of buses, because there are lots of old Guy buses around still. That's a proper working lorry, that is. On John D. Horner of Heysham, established 1970. Okay, let's have a wander along, see what's here so far. Immaculate Scania. It's like the early one on a P registration. Volvo F10.
Yeah, very flat front. Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Maybe you remember driving some of these vehicles back in the day when they were current. If so, please pop a note in the comment and tell us all about those days. Here we've got a Volvo, turbocharged Volvo F720. All these in the same ownership by the look of it, Ken Thomas Limited, Wisbech, and here a Sedan Atkinson. So one time they used to be separate manufacturers and then they merged and became Sedan Atkinson. That must be a fairly late example, I would have thought. It's on the 1985 registration. I'm pretty sure they disappeared selling new vehicles many, many years ago. But nice as they are, would you take a look at this Albion? Wow. Isn't that just a stunning, stunning old lorry? Lovely pre-war lorry, and that's what we like. I remember when I used to come here, this place was rammed with really early lorries. So I'm hoping it will fill up a little bit as the day progresses. But yeah, let's just have a look at that. Beautifully turned out. Quite a long wheelbase, drop side body again. Yeah, that is just stunning. Big cast aluminium radiator there for Albion with a logo proudly emblazoned on the front. Albion, sure as the sunrise. This was a Scottish manufacturer of lorries back in the day. That is just wonderful. If you're noticing a slight bias towards older vehicles, well, I'm not going to apologise for that, because I think they are just wonderful. You can't underestimate just how difficult, or how much effort rather, it takes to keep these old girls going and on the road. Like I say, it's quite a long wheelbase, this one. Volvo. Sweden's finest, perhaps. But yeah, back to Scotland's finest. Now Now, would that be the lorry that I'd want to take home, or would it be the slightly smaller E88W van we were looking at before? I'm not quite sure. Oof, decisions. Anyway, let's carry on. And here we've got a Volvo F88. These are quite a famous lorry of the 1970s. By this point in time, Volvo were really getting a foothold in the British commercial vehicle market. And here, much later, F12. Very appropriate registration as well. If you're fairly new to the channel, I'd recommend having a look at some of the early videos we've done of some of the steam rallies and vintage rallies we've been to that have had a huge number of old lorries in attendance. I'm thinking maybe the Llandudno Transport Festival or Malpas Steam Rally, Smallwood. If you do a search across the channel, you'll find videos for all these events. And here we've just got a stunning AEC. If we have a quick peek behind here, we can see that it's an AEC Mustang. Early 1960s, that one. It's got the twin steering front axles. Alongside that, a Leyland Octopus. Wow, again, beautiful old British lorry, immaculately turned out. In the livery of British Road Services. In the 1950s, I think it was, the road haulage in this country was nationalised. All the independent operators were swallowed up into what became BRS. And this is the livery of this particular Leyland Octopus. Well, yeah, I think we've got a window open here so we can have a quick peek inside the cab. Another stunning lorry. Right, that's the Leyland, so named because it's built up in Leyland in Lancashire in the north of England. And here we've got another Leyland, but much later. This is a Leyland Bison of about 1979 going off the registration number. It appears to be a tipper truck, a well-used tipper. You can just see how the designs had really moved on from these lovely old curvy lorries to slightly more angular cabs. Pair of Scanias here from the 1980s, beautifully turned out. But really what I want to have a look at is this Foden here. Now it's on a T registration, so that's late 1970s. Is that the actual age of this vehicle? It's certainly a much older style, but it could well be. Of course, Foden, these were built in Sandbach in Cheshire for many, many decades. Very, very famous maker of old lorries. Well, lorries. But sadly, no more. Got the old London phone number there, 01. Before they went to 071, 081, and then 0171 and 0181. Now it's 020, if I remember right. So yeah, nice little attention to detail there. I think I spy another nice fuel gauge on the side of this petrol tank, or rather diesel tank here. There we go. Even appears to have a little bit of diesel in the gauge itself. Beauty. Oh, I can see some nice old things a little bit further up. But first, let's have a look at this Magirus Deutz. It's on a V registration, so 1979. Nice old photographs of it. The JLM 484V. So that was this vehicle in its working life, in the livery of McGovern. Here it is restored into that old livery. Wow, that's a clean looking truck. And here we have an AEC Mammoth Major. Same livery as well, still with the old London number there. Now, what's it say here? Got a bit of information here about a truck run it was involved in back in 2008. A bit of information about the AEC Society. Now, next to this AEC Mammoth Major, we have an AEC Mammoth Major, but a much, much earlier example. And that, oh dear, what a, I don't know, I do love these old AECs. I just think they're such characterful old lorries. Must have been hard things that, to drive that day in, day out, overnight, stopping in at Greasy Spoons and transport calves up and down the country. No motorways back in those days, no power steering, no air conditioning. Just a crash gearbox and a leaky, drafty, wood-framed cab. And that was the case from the 20s and the 1930s, right the way through until the 1950s. They certainly worked hard, those guys who used to drive these things back in the day. Now we can enjoy these beautiful preserved examples as a reminder of those days, and many of the manufacturers of course are long gone. So this is also in the livery of BRS, British Road Services. Twin steer again, twin steer and front axle. I think they call those the Chinese 6. What do we have on the back here? That's the beauty of owning a huge old flatbed lorry like this. It gives you a good excuse to buy something just to put on the back. We've got a diesel Fieldmaster. Looks like a miniature version of the full-size Marshall tractors that you see around and about. What we have arriving here looks suspiciously like a Leyland Comet breakdown wagon with a caravan on the back. Now we're talking long-termers to the old classic car channel may remember we used to have a 1930 Ford Model AA truck, long wheelbase, twin wheels on the back, and I'm guessing this is closely related to it. Now, is this a Model AA or the slightly later BB? Very, very similar cab. You can tell it's a later vehicle than mine because it's got the old steel cab roof, whereas mine had like a Rexine padded cover type thing up there, but the shape of it is exactly the same. Radiator surround slightly different. Let's have a look in the window. Date of registration 1st of May 1933. The same ownership since 1964. So if that's 1933, I'm guessing this is a BB, but I could be wrong. But either way, beautiful pre-war Ford truck. Now it's right-hand drive, this one. Obviously if it was American build it would be left-hand drive. So I'm guessing this may have been assembled over here, possibly at Trafford Park. Ford had a plant at Trafford Park and they assembled cars and commercial vehicles there. So my hunch is that this one was built up from a kit of parts shipped over from America and built up here as a right-hand drive vehicle from new. And the fact that it's always been here, going off that little bit of history in the window, points to this being a British assembled truck, I think. Doesn't that look fantastic? I love the shape of the cab on these as well. They've got this sort of built-in sun visor as well, which is a neat little touch. Of course in America you have many, many sunny days like this, whereas over here, not so common perhaps, but that's lovely. If my Model AA had just been a little bit smaller, it was a long wheelbase, like I say, with twin wheels either side on the back. It was just a bit too big to fit in the garage comfortably, and keeping it outside wasn't really an option. Not long term anyway, so sadly it had to go. But if I found one of these slightly smaller lorries, or maybe a Model A pickup, that would be a dream. If you saw the Gaursworth haul video that I did recently, you'll see me getting very excited about an oily rag Ford Model A pickup that turned up there, which would just be a beautiful thing to own, as would this fantastic, what I think is a Model BB. So have a quick look in the back. Great old trunk in there as well, look at that. Handy place to keep all your tools, because of course with an open truck like this you don't have much secure space actually to store stuff. Those lamps are a bit newer. Nice, it's on its original registration, VJ5112. The number plate, Pirates haven't gone to that one yet, which is fantastic, but I just love the condition of it. The fact that that paint has been on there a very, very long time indeed. So is this my new favourite vehicle of the show? I don't know, decisions, but it's certainly right up there. What a beauty. Let me know in the comments please which of these vehicles that we feature here today at Gaydon you would want to bring home with you. Even got the original Ford scripted headlamp lenses. Over here next to the beautiful little Ford truck we have an A40 van, the 1000 weight A40 van. The styling of these is very similar to that of the Austin Devon, but these were produced for much longer than the Austin Devon was, because the Devon was replaced by the Austin Somerset, which had a very similar chassis, although it went to column change, but otherwise yeah, very similar. But they carried on making the Devon styled vans, the A40 vans, alongside the Somerset saloon when that was introduced. So the production run for these was much longer than the contemporary car. Obviously you used to have the A40 Dorset very early in A40 production, a two-door version of the Devon, but that was only produced for a couple of years, from about 1947 to 49-ish, something like that. But these were produced up until the mid-late 1950s, something like that. They did evolve a little bit. The early vans had floor change gearbox, the later ones had the column shift, as the contemporary Somerset of course did. Grills changed as well. The early ones had the Mazak sort of chrome looking grills like the A40 Devons, then they went to this sort of half painted affair with the little chrome strips on. It's a beautiful little van that is. I used to have an A40 Devon car, which was my runaround. Long termers on Old Classic Car on the main site will probably remember that. HWX 801, the lovely black car from 1949. I also had a couple of A40 pickups which were sold alongside these vans. Chunkier wheels on the commercials, the vans and the pickups compared to the saloons as well. I think they're an inch larger diameter. The cutouts are slightly bigger on the front wings on the vans and the car compared to the cars. Let's have a quick peek inside. So this has got the column change of the Somerset. 2 seats, because quite often vans only had 1 seat in them. The driver and the passenger had to sit on the floor or make up their own arrangements. Got a nice dealer supplier badge on the dashboard there as well. This one's got the full spats over the rear wheels, the removable spats. Later A40 vans didn't have that, they just had the wings, sort of, if you like, the rear wings and everything were all integral with the rear body. But on these earlier ones you could pop these little Zuz fasteners. These just twist through about 90 degrees and then you can pop that off if you need to change a wheel, because otherwise it would be quite tricky. Yeah, very stylish little van that is. I do like that a lot. A friend of mine's got one of these in his garage, awaiting restoration. Hopefully that'll get done one day. I know he is busy on other things, many other things. Got a vent in the roof, a bigger version of that on the A35 vans. Yeah, we can have another peek in, a better look at that dealer badge there, Bristol Street. So it's a 1952 van, this one. Same year as our Anglia back at home. think I did a brochure review many years ago for the channel, just looking at the brochure for these little A40 commercials. Let's see if I can find a link to that. What a cracking little van that is. Still has the 1200cc engine of the regular Devons and the Somerset saloons. So no ball of fire. Probably lower geared as well, being a van, like a delivery van. They're often lower geared compared to the cars. But that's a rare survivor now. Like I said, this is a 2-day show. It's a little bit quiet today. Someone was saying it will be busier tomorrow, but unfortunately I wasn't able to come down tomorrow. But maybe next year we'll come down on the Sunday. That would be exciting, because apparently a lot of this fills out a little bit more, but I'm confident we'll find plenty of old vehicles here regardless, because so many of the vehicles that turn up are actually a little bit later than those that I'm really interested in. So if we prioritise the proper old stuff today, I think this will make for quite an interesting video, especially for any fans of these classic lorries and trucks. And on a beautiful day like this, where else would you want to be? Over here we have the Morris Commercial Club, for fans of all commercial variants, badged up as Morris's over the years. Of course, the early vans and trucks were badged up as Morris Commercial, then they dropped the commercial bit. And here we have a lovely Morris Minor van, although they were never actually, I don't think they were ever actually sold as Morris Minor vans in the catalogues. I think they were always like Morris 700 weight or 800 weight vans, something like that. And that's a beautifully turned out example. Of course, same engine as the saloons, the Morris Minor 1000 saloon. They're very different under the skin. These have a separate chassis on them, a box chassis under there, so the vans and the pickups have those, and they do go quite rusty. So if you're ever having a look at buying one of these little Morris vans, have a very good product, the chassis. In the old days you'd think a separate chassis, that'll be nice and strong, but on these, not always. They often rot away just as quick as the rest of them. But this is a beautiful vehicle. That rear body is actually separate to the cab. You can unbolt that, there's the join. And again, if you're going to buy one of these, have a good look at the gutters as well, because that's one of the trickiest parts to replace on a Morris Minor van if you're thinking of buying one. They can rot out around there as well as around these rear corners. Someone did actually start making rear bodies complete in fiberglass. Whether that's what this is, I don't know. It looks like a proper one, I think. But either way, what a great little Morris van that is. I do like that a lot. It's nice to see the proper bonnet on it as well, as I've said before, but not everyone's watched the previous videos. This strip here on the saloons, that continues along there. But the commercials, for some reason, they dropped that. Why they'd bother, I have no idea. This one's got a posh one, it's got a heater. Many of these vans were used by GPO, the Post Office and British Telecom, BT, they had them as well, the yellow ones in the 1970s. So at one time these were everywhere. But they got worked hard, and as a result very few survive, especially in that condition. So that's beautiful, I love seeing that. HT, now where's that? I think that might be a Bristol registration. Probably even rarer than the Minor van is this Marina van. Again, these probably weren't actually called Marina vans back in the day. This one's badged up as a 700 weight, and I'm sure that's what it would have been referred to in the BL catalogues of the 1970s. I'm sure I've got one or two back at base. But yeah, got some nice badges on this one as well. BMC Drivers Club. And just like the Morris Minor before that, you could get vans or pickup versions of these Marina-based vans. All very basic in here, very basic interior, just a big speedo and fuel gauge there. There's an extra ammeter fitted to this one, but yeah, pretty basic. But it's a van, it's a working vehicle, so you didn't need too many luxuries. Slightly wider wheels on these as well compared to the Marina saloons. What a great survivor that is. Behind the Marina van we have this little Morris 1000 weight van. This is on the C registration, but they made these up well into the 1970s. That's a great little thing, that is. So 1000 weight, so that's what, half-ton rated. In the livery of William Grant & Sons Limited, Scotch whisky. Dufftown. There we go, a bit of history. We do like a bit of history. This van spent all its life in the north of Scotland. It's even more amazing it survived then. Its first owner was a dairy. He used it to deliver milk to outlying customers. After about 4 years, the business closed and the van was left in the barn for several years. It was then bought by a young man who planned to restore it. However, his parents moved house and he had to sell it. The next owner had worked for Grant's for many, many years, and he owned other vehicles in Grant's livery. He sent this van for a bare metal respray in teal blue, as it was still in the white colour as the dairy bought it. There's a bit more information there. Again, just a lovely example of a very rare little van.
I think it's in the car, just in case the weather's good. Yeah.
Quite stylish as well with these little trims down the side. Of course, on a van you don't need any of those fripperies, but it's nice that they still included that kind of thing on what was a working vehicle. Same with these chromed window surrounds as well. That's a nice little detail, and again something that you wouldn't think they'd actually bother putting on.
Yeah, that's what you're saying, yeah. 681 LBJ it was, I still remember. 62 something, yeah. Good.
What do we have over here? A Commer 646 XVE, a little Commer, but what's that body? It looks a bit hearse-shaped. Is that what it is? Maybe this sheet in the window here will shed light on what it is. Yeah, it was owned by Mr. Higgins, a local taxi owner. We believe it had it altered by a local body maker into a hearse for Mr. Bevan of Ross-on-Wye, a local undertaker. Wow. On presenting it to him, Mr. Bevan was told to have said, "I won't be seen dead in that," so it was never used as a hearse. That's interesting. And it went out to Sweden. Wow. If you want to read some of this history, just pause the video.
Oh, Sharon. You'll be there here. You've got to look.
The driver's eye view of this lovely little Commer. Such an unusual vehicle. Obviously rebodied, modified bodywork, and that makes it a one-off, I'm guessing.
Oh, okay.
And that's one of the things, like I was saying before, that's so appealing about the old commercial vehicle scene, is the variety of bodywork you get, you know. That's just incredible. We've never seen anything like that before, and we'll never see anything like it again, I'm sure.
It's not been restored this way.
Do have a soft spot for Commer after dragging the big old Commer that we had until a couple of years ago out of a barn down in Somerset. There are videos on the channel if you want to watch a little bit of more Commer content. Yeah. Wonder what the steps for there. Where would that take you? Did it have a roof? Oh, there's a handle up there as well. I'm guessing maybe it had a roof rack up there at one point. Now back to Morris for a moment. And also on here, the Morris Commercial Club stand is this wonderful Morris Commercial van here, bodied as a Luton bodied van. Luton bodied vans, because the storage area goes forwards ahead of the cab, and they used to call those Luton bodies. Might still do for all I know, but yeah. Wow, what a cracker that is. And like I said, Morris Commercial, they used to be badged up as Morris Commercial Cars Limited, Birmingham, England, British to the backbone. And there we've got John Bull on the radiator, the little mascot there. Wouldn't have had these on, but yeah. What a proper old lorry that is. Guessing these are the old pop-up semaphore trafficators here, just set into the side of the body. And there's a nice little detail. See all these little slotted screws? Well, A, the fact that they're slotted is good, because we don't like cross-headed screws on old lorries. But B, more importantly, the slots are lined up, and that shows attention to detail. That's what we did when we were working on Big Dodge when that was being done. Get all the screw heads lining up, because it just looks, can you imagine if you looked at that closely and they were all higgledy-piggledy, it would just look so different. It's only a small little detail, but it's important. Let's have a quick peer in through the window here. I love that a lot. I love this hooter as well. Let's have a quick look round the back. Ooh, this all looks very civilised. Wow, look at that. From the front you would never know that that's been converted to living accommodation. But not just any living accommodation. Just look at the attention to detail and the work that's gone into that. I hope they won't mind me just having a quick peek inside. Isn't that just incredible? All lined out, fully trimmed out. Isn't that just wonderful?
Oh, blimey. Oh, brilliant. Yeah. That's lovely. It's got a little fire thing there, hasn't it?
What a treat. Just under here, let's just have a quick look. Yeah, Morris Commercial 1936. British to the backbone, wherever I lay my hat. That's just incredible. I love this on the back though. I'm sure many of you watching this have memories of Ford Transits. Surely everyone's been in a Transit at some point or other over the years. Obviously British built for so many years, I don't think they're made here anymore. More's the pity, but yeah, back when this one was made in about 1984, I'm guessing this was made at the plant down at, was it Southampton, somewhere around there. So that's a Mark II Transit, isn't it? Those hubcaps are off an old Zodiac, I think. 1984 Ford Transit Mark II 120 Custom. You know, bit of information there for you. There's a copy of the original purchase invoice. One new Ford Transit 120 Custom chassis cab, 2 litre overhead cam petrol engine. Yours for the princely sum of £6,727 in October 1984. So that's a fair chunk of money actually. That's beautifully restored little Transit. There's an interesting one with a sort of breakdown recovery Transit behind it. Another example of the Mark II from the late 1970s. Bit of a customised job this. Of course, custom vans were a big thing in the sort of 70s, early 80s. Loads of these Transit were modified like this into Bedfords. I'm thinking of the CF2s. Very similar to the American day vans. But yeah, Mark 1s and 2s are where it's at for me, I think. Alright, more Transit action. Look at this jacked up 4x4 version. Wowzers, classictouringcars.com. We've seen this one somewhere before, but don't quite remember where. But yeah, what a fantastic thing that is. Liveried up with the name Triplex. Reminds me a bit of the racing Dolomite Sprints. I think they were sponsored by Triplex for a time as well. Yeah, another much modified one here, another 4x4, the County 4x4. It's got like these nice metal pressed plates. I think these were Circ number plates, SERCK. And that's just right for that era of vehicle. Yeah, this is incredible, this one. Left-hand drive. So this is like a support van, isn't it? Oh. Mark 1 minibus here. Pretty groovy looking wheels on it. This will be the diesel one with the more sort of pointy out front, the stick out front. Diesel or petrol versions were available. Let's have a quick shufty again at this information board. Always very useful these are. 1971 originally had a V4 1700 engine. Change the engine now to a tuned V6 3-litre GT with big valve heads, bored out hot cam, Jan speed exhaust manifolds and custom exhaust. Wow. There's a few mods going on there, but the only giveaway are the wheels, otherwise looks like a standard vehicle. The Mark 1 here. So that's a twin wheel van. Guessing that's a petrol one with a slightly less pronounced nose on it. You can see the difference there compared to that one. It's like new, as is this one here. What have we got here then? Looks like it needs an old classic car sticker or two in here. Check out the OCC merchandise shop if you wish to avail yourself of a bit of old classic car merch. Ooh. So you can kip in the back of this one. Many, many badges. Good heavens. Good grief. Very comfortable. And the all-important kettle, of course. Well, there we go. Triplex sponsored Capri. Jerry Marshall. Got another trio of transits here. I did do an upload a little while ago, a compilation of photographs featuring some of the early transits, so if you're a fan of these faithful old vans, go and root that one out when you're finished here. But yeah, so we've got a van here, another one of the jacked up 4x4 counties, and again, motorsport oriented livery. Same with this one here, albeit not a 4x4. Back to lorries again, and yeah, oh no, this is an interesting one. We've got the BRS board at the top there, but also the original livery of the original independent haulier that used to run it, Rugby Transport Limited. So sort of a halfway house livery this one's been restored in. What is the vehicle? It is a Thornycroft. A Thornycroft Sturdy. What a beautiful vehicle that is. It's just a wonderful, wonderful little vehicle. Bit of information up there, I don't know if you can pick that out. Thornycroft Sturdy, first registered 13th of April 1949. Taken over by BRS on the 4th of January 1950 as part of the South Leicester Group based at Bilton Depot. I love this old tarp on the back here, stenciled up with BRS on it. Wow, beautiful, proper rope as well. It's nice to see properly roped on loads on the back of these vehicles. I'm guessing there's probably a bit of ballast sat in there because they can be a bit bouncy, these old lorries, if they haven't got a weight on the back, because of course they're really heavily sprung to deal with carrying big loads. So when you're running without a big load on it, it makes sense to actually put a bit of a load on it just to stop it hopping around too much. But yeah, what a cracking, beautiful little vehicle. Over here we've got an MAN diesel. It's on an N registration, so mid-1970s-ish. Again, beautifully turned out, Morton's BRS. Look how it towers, even though that's a fairly old vehicle in its own right now. How it towers over this bonny little carrier at the end here. Carrier, of course, was part of Roots Group, just like Commer. And these originally, I think, were badged up as Commers. I don't know when the changeover took place to Carrier. But these were produced for a long time, probably 1950s, late 50s, through the 1960s and well into the 1970s. I mean, this one's on a T registration, so that's about 78 or 79, somewhere like that. And again, a bit of weight in the back, just to keep things steady as you drive along. Big heavy bit of cast iron there. I'm guessing that's off a crane, is it? Maybe one of those scoop type things off a crane. Don't know. Let me know in the comments if you recognise that. I'm sure someone will know what that is. But I have to profess my ignorance in that score. But yeah, isn't that lovely? Not too big. I mean, you couldn't quite keep it in a domestic garage, but it certainly fit on a domestic driveway. And lorries are just wonderful. TT, that's a Devon registration, around about Exeter or Exmouth, somewhere around there. Got a pair of lorries here in the livery of G&J Ping of Peterborough, the mighty Scania on the next registration. But next to that, another of Sandbach's finest, beautiful Foden PRP 720. Now, what model of Foden are we looking at there? Don't know. S20, S21, maybe. Beautifully turned out. How shiny is that? And of course, there's your fifth wheel coupling for a trailer. Back in the day, that would have all been greased up in the trailer. And the front sort of, I don't know what you call it, the front bit of the trailer locks into there. And it's articulated on that.
And guess what? We got stuck.
Yep, I just checked, that's a 1958 Foden S20. So I was on the right lines with that one. Now what have we got here? Different livery, different owner, but also Foden. Let's have a look. New to Greyswood Transport in March 1969, S36. Again, ballasted up. Another one of those beautiful Road Haulage Association badges. Look at that. just nip back to this S20 for a minute because there was someone stood here before. Didn't want to get in their way, but right, we can have a quick look at the history of this one.
The actual place, if you go up that road, there's no entry.
Over here we've got another MAN, and parked, grouped up over here, we have the Bedford Enthusiasts Club stand and a smattering of elderly Bedfords for our perusal, headed by this TK horse box. And most of the TKs you still see bumbling around are in fact horse boxes. They often tended to have a slightly easier time of things compared to those used in more energetic commercial roles. And obviously kept going for longer as well, because they're often, in later years, they're in private ownership as opposed to as parts of big fleets. You still see these TK based horse boxes around and about. This one's on a W registration. Yeah, very dependable old vehicles these were, and made for many, many years. The 60s, 70s, and probably into the 1980s, I imagine. I think it was the MJ military Bedfords also had the same cab on them. They were a sort of evolution of the TK, I think. The earlier ones had different badging on the front. They had what they call the whisker cab, and there's like these sort of little moulded whiskers on the front panel. Whether we'll see one of those here today or not, I'm not quite sure. But this being a W plate, so about 1980, 80-ish, 81, 82, somewhere around there. That's quite a late example of a TK. We've got another one here. This one's a flatbed this time. That's also on a W, so again a fairly late example. Now here we've got an AWD. I can't quite remember the relationship between this and Bedford. I know it's a Bedford cab. You can see there's a TL badge on the door there. AWD was an outside concern. I think they must have bought and converted, adapted Bedfords for a particular purpose, but more than that I don't know, I'm afraid, but you don't see them all that often now. However, star of this particular stand is this, a Bedford. Now this is a Bedford PC. There was also a JC which was slightly smaller, but this is the PC, I think. I think there's also a brochure review for these somewhere on the channel. A few years ago I did a few brochure reviews of these lovely old sales promotional catalogues that I've got sat away in the file here. And I'm sure I did one for Bedford. If I haven't, I will do one as soon as I get a chance. Years and years ago I had a contact in Australia and ended up buying 3 Bedford PC Utes, the Ute pickup, Australian bodied versions of one of these. In fact, I've still got the door, or spare door for that in the garage, but this is the van version. The van versions were sold here in the UK, but the Utes were very much an Australian thing, so it had the same front as that, but the doors were different, so it was sold in this sort of chassis and the front end in kit form to Australia. Then it was bodied locally, and it had like a very curvy cab on it. I'll find a photo and include it here. The cab sort of curved round, and then it had like an integral pickup body on it, i.e. a Ute, which is very much an Australian thing. I'm assuming this has always been in this country, this particular van, but these are really, really rare. There was the JC and the HC before that. I think it was the HC that was slightly smaller rated, slightly smaller van. And this is the PC. It looks pre-war, and the design does date back to pre-war, but I'm guessing this is probably about 1951, 52, somewhere around about there. And then they were replaced by the Bedford CA. But these are way rarer than the Bedford CA. You hardly ever see these. The running gear is very similar to contemporary Vauxhall 12 or 14s. If I get a chance, I'll look at the date of registration for this particular vehicle, because that is such a rare thing to see. I often wonder where my old Utes ended up. Yeah, that's a real treat to see that one here today at Gaydon at the Commercial Vehicle Show. Still got a few vehicles arriving for the weekend. What do we have there? A beautiful bonneted flatbed. Cool. What a stunning old Bedford. Come over here. Okay, well, back to the Bedford Enthusiasts Club, and we have this cherry picker here. Handy for cleaning your gutters. I'm guessing this is an S-type Bedford. Certainly looks like the S-type Bedford. You have the RLs, the four-wheel drive, the military versions. I'm guessing that's an S-type. Glistening in the sun here. And alongside that, a tipper. Now that's a lovely one. These bonneted Bedfords are just beautiful. Very similar in style to the old Austin K series, the K2 and the K4. And they were often nicknamed actually the Birmingham Bedfords. But this is the real deal, complete with hydraulic tipper.
Yeah, we get the bits from
That's a proper bit of kit.
wind.
Oh yeah, we might use the wind. And he was just on doing a crop I went there and there. Yes, they've got a leg of it though. They're using the coach for them.
Yeah, they're all gone now.
Oh, there's still some of it.
There we go, 1946 O-type Bedford. Bit of history and a few old photos, pre and post restoration.
That's why it's worth being in the club, because club members get first edition of any spares that come up.
Oh, doesn't that, yeah, just sitting there. We're trying to send them out.
I don't know, to be honest, it's a bit early.
Yes, on the gate.
Truly a labour of love putting this old girl back together.
Yeah, yes, it is, isn't it?
What a great end result.
The M's got the longer bonnet, isn't it?
Next to this glorious, just post-war O-type. Note how the chrome parts are painted over, so maybe this was sort of leftover stock from the war when blackout restrictions tended to forbid shiny chrome appendages on your commercial vehicles. Yeah, what a beauty that is. Alongside that, another Bedford TK. Now this isn't the early whisker cab version, but it is certainly slightly earlier. It's on an H. A little bit earlier badging. You can see the one over the back there, probably. It's got the big Bedford badge on the grille, whereas these have the separate letters on the front panel there. Next up, a Bedford midi van. Now, these are a rebadged Japanese van. Can't remember quite who they were, what it was based on. Maybe this will tell us. It's a 1989 midi van, 2 litre petrol. Right, just got a bit of the history of this particular van. I'm just trying to remember what these were based on. It was a bit of badge engineering, but they did sell well. The building over there, that's where the British Motor Museum itself is here at Gaydon. I probably will do a separate video all about that and upload it a little while after this one. Back in the 1960s, just over the back over there, it used to be RAF Gaydon, and the Valiant V-bombers, part of the nuclear deterrent, used to be based there. So these skies would have been full of V-bombers bombing around, going around, training exercises and so on. Somewhere over here, there's that Bedford, just hiding away over the back over there. Let's go and see if we can get over there and have a closer look at that. Maybe it'll be moved later to the main exhibition area, I'm not quite sure, but just in case, I think we will trips over there and just go and have a quick shifty. I like this Volvo's got some impressive graphics on it. Look at that. Thames Trader. In the parking area over here we've got some ERFs, like the Fodens that we saw before. These also hail from Sandbach. And in fact, the F of ERF is for Foden. because in 1933, I think it was, there was a bit of a fallout amongst the Foden family as to the future direction of lorries and haulage in general. Foden believed that steam lorries were the way forward for the future, whereas Edwin Richard Foden, ERF, Edwin Richard Foden, he decided that diesel power was the future for lorries in this country and so on. So he, obviously there was a bit of a stalemate, so he left Foden's themselves and set up his own company, ERF, also in Sandbach. So there were rivals within the same little town. Sandbach isn't a large place at all, so to have two different lorry manufacturers almost within sight of each other must have been quite interesting, especially as they both had Fodens running them. Yeah, so that's ERF, founded in 1933. And as time has proven, Edwin was correct, because the future was diesel-powered lorries and not steam. And Foden soon came round to the same opinion and switched to diesel-powered lorries themselves. Oh, here we go. Here is that Bedford that I saw driving in before. I think it's another example of the O-series, probably just post-war. Flatbed body on it, which is quite handy if you want to take an old tractor to a show, something like that. What a stylish little thing that is. Bedfords were produced throughout the war, the O-series. I think they were called the OW and the OY, and they had a much squarer, flatter front on them. None of this beautifully curved radiator shell on them, just a flat metal thing. Same with the bonnet, and it tipped down. It came down at quite a sharp angle as well on the military OWs and the OYs. Much simpler, probably cheaper to produce, easier to fix if they got bashed up and so on. But these civilian cabbed, civilian fronted lorries, these old Bedfords, just what a beautiful thing that is. For the price of a tidy MGB or something like that, you could probably buy one of these and take it to shows. It wouldn't be fast. You'd have to check that your license actually allows you to drive a vehicle of slightly larger or heavier weight than a car would be. But yeah, how much fun would it be to drive around in that? Lovely straight cut gears, the noisy gear whine, beautiful sound of the engine as it labours along at a steady 25-30 miles an hour. But you don't need to rush anywhere, just enjoy the drive of a beautiful old lorry like this. If I had the space, I would be very tempted with something like this, because I think these are just fantastic, so characterful, beautiful old things these are. Whereas it's probably these later vehicles that more people can relate to now. It's these older vehicles that are really my cup of tea.
We did go to this year, they all got wedged in there.
I'm guessing this old Iveco beaver tail truck here has probably got a few miles on it now. It's on an S registration. It's becoming oldish. I'm guessing it was probably used to bring one of these old tractors. We appear to have some tractors here. The Warwick Vintage Tractor and Machinery Society's stand. So it'd be rude not to have a look, wouldn't it? Got Fordson here on the end. The grey Fergie, little Ferguson there. The Massey Ferguson, a 35. Effectively that was more or less, I mean the Fergie 35 replaced the grey Fergie. And combined with Massey, we ended up with Massey Ferguson. There you go, the Ferguson system. That relates to the Ferguson linkage on the back here, to which you could attach all manner of interesting and useful appendages. That's a whopper. I remember seeing this here years ago at events we used to come to here. The Morris FG, a 1965 FG. These were variously badged as Austin, Morris, and later BMC. This is a Carmichael converted fire vehicle. Let's have a quick look over here. It's got the Carmichael badge as well as Morris on the front here. This was restored in Daventry, 1965 Morris FG. Fading a little bit now, as red tends to do. Yeah, still very sound. Lovely sound cab on there. These FGs have really interesting shaped cabs on them. There's the door. I used to call them threepenny bit cabs. And it angles back that way. Don't know if the camera will pick that up. But yeah, you've got the side of the cab here, and then it goes like that and down across there, diagonally back. And that was to enable you to open the doors and clamber in and out if you were parked in a very narrow area. So if you were close to a wall, say here, you'd still be able to get your door open. Whereas if you had a conventional cab hinged along there and it was opening like that, you might not have room. But this meant that you could park in very tight spaces and still get your doors open. So that's what makes them very handy indeed. There's one of these, an abandoned one of these back in the 1970s that I used to visit and play in, pretending to be a truck driver. Well, I remember all the glass was smashed, all these curved bits of glass. It had just been abandoned outside the building. I had many hours of fun. Sat in one of these, pretending to be a lorry driver in the late 1970s, and it was one of these FGs. That's my abiding memory of these. But the downside is, yes, you've got the flexibility of having the door which open there, but they are quite narrow. They are quite narrow doors. So you wouldn't want to be too portly if you're clambering in and out of one of these day in, day out. Right, let's wander up here and have a look at that old Austin, which I can see over yonder. Okay, over here we have a ex-military Austin K9. That cab was based on that of the Austin Lodestar of the 1950s. But this is four-wheel drive, I think. Similar to the Bedford RL, probably a rival of the Bedford RL. This was Austin's rival to that, if you like. Very chunky, great looking little vehicle these are. I think that's a radio body on the back there. Probably been converted to living accommodation now, which seems like a very good idea. But back in the day that probably would have had a load of radio communications gear, that kind of thing in the back. Yeah. Lovely old Austin, quite cobwebby. I'm guessing maybe it doesn't move all that often. Cobwebs dancing in the breeze here. But yeah, lovely, very characterful old lorries these are. Oh, here we go. Hadn't seen this. Body wireless light Mark II box back type. Got a couple more beauties rumbling in. This is a Dodge, what they used to call the parrot nose Dodge. Also in BRS livery. Another one behind that. Beautiful pair. If you've ever seen the film Hell Drivers, those are the vehicles they would have been driving, the old parrot nose Dodges. What do we have here? An Atkinson Border of the early 1970s, and again beautifully turned out. Bradbury's Limited. Now, if you remember, we saw that Leyland Beaver as we just drove, as we walked in before, and that came from Cheadle in Staffordshire as well. I came from Cheadle, but the Cheshire one. So this has come from the same town as that old Leyland, but does it belong to the same person or not? I don't know. But yeah, what a beauty that is. Cummins diesel power. Bit of information here. Atkinson Borderer Mark II, May 1975.
Voor zo'n vrachtwagen week, man.
Lovely old Atkinson, or Atki. Let's carry on down here. Mighty Scania 113M, 1970s Mercedes. Okay, backing on to the mighty Atki. Is this a Bedford? It looks like a TK cab. There's the engine under there. You've got these access panels here that hinge up to give you a bit more access to the engine. Of course, unlike the rival Ford D-Series, these didn't have a tipping cab, whereas the D-Series did. I think this instead, actually not, it's not TK, is it? I was looking from the back of the cab, which is very similar. I think this is it's either a TM or a KM. Obviously the cab is based on that of the TK, so I think I can be excused that one walking up from behind here. It's very similar to a TK, so the uninitiated such as myself. So yeah, it's either TM or a KM. I'm guessing KM, but I could well be wrong. Let's have a look at some photos of this old vehicle before it was restored. Very smart indeed. Got another example here as well on the E-plate, 1967. Skip and grab hire. Again, BDC badge. Another one here, 3 of them. Good heavens. If you like your classic Bedfords, this is the video for you. Look at this, a Sedan diesel. So not yet Sedan Atkinson, still Sedan as an independent manufacturer. Again, some very welcome photos here of before restoration. It must be quite a rare old vehicle, that I would have thought. Here we go. Now this, we've finally found an early TK cab. I wasn't making it up. See the whiskers? A little sort of whiskers they call them on the front of the cab there. This is quite an early one. Guessing early 60s, late, could even be late 50s I'm guessing, but probably about 61, 62. But yes, you got these whiskers pressed into the front panel. And that's a sign that you're looking at an early-ish TK, as opposed to one of the late ones, like that horse box we were looking at, the W-Reg example. Lovely, lovely lineup of Bedfords there. A much bigger one here. A TM2500. Very bonny indeed. And from the same fleet, RC Jeffrey and Sons, as this one is this one, a Mammoth Major, an AEC Mammoth Major. Many of these old lorries are actually owned by current modern day hauliers, and they just have a bit of a heritage fleet, which does make life a little bit easier, because generally speaking you've got a bit of space to store lorries like this and work on them. Because when you've got old lorries, this kind of thing, they do take up a lot of space. All the tools are that much heavier, the jacks, the spanners, everything is just that much beefier. So if you run modern day lorries, you're going to have a lot of the kit to hand to make running one of these older lorries just that little bit easier. Now here's a rare one on the end here, a Vulcan. You don't see these all that often. There are some old photos of Vulcan lorries on the main old classic car site in the image archive section, which I've been building up on and off over the last 20 or so years. But it's not often you actually see one in the metal. What a treat that is. And there's a picture of it when it was found. Grief. There wasn't much left of that one. And look at it now. Wow. It's always good to see these little rarities. And the old Vulcan is definitely in that category, a proper rarity. Still with its FAY registration number. Isn't that cracking? What a great thing. Got another Bedford here, bodied for livestock. This is a Bedford TL, I think. Again, beautifully turned out. It takes some looking after these huge wooden bodies. It's one thing just having a flatbed, just keeping that in good condition, but to keep all that in good order, wowzers. That takes some dedication, that does. 1983 Bedford TL, complete with 1961 Tiverton livestock container, purchased from a farmer in Somerset in 2010. It's since been restored in memory of my late father, who started his business in the early 50s. So that's interesting. So the cab of the chassis is 1983, but the body is 1961. Just been chatting to the owner of this wonderful old Commer. This is a maxi loader, and you might notice the little badge, the all-important badge on the front here, Roots Diesel. This has the fantastic sounding Roots, the TS3 supercharged diesel engine, and these sound fantastic. If you don't know what I'm talking about, have a quick look on YouTube for the TS3 Commer engine. See if you can find some footage of these things running, because they sound phenomenal. So you've had this, what, 15 years, you say, something like that?
Yes,
but you used to run these back in the...
It's 1975, I started on my own with a Commer two-stroke, same as this one, yeah.
Wow. So what are they like to drive, the two-strokes?
Quite noisy, but very good.
What are they like compared to a diesel? Are they torquey or less torquey? Or...
It is a diesel.
Yeah, oh right, but like the regular sort of diesels. Is there any benefit to it being a two-stroke, do you think?
Well, yeah, it fires every two strokes, and it's only got three cylinders.
Right.
Six pistons and 3 injectors it's got.
Oh right. Are they supercharged, these?
Yes.
I thought they were.
Right,
yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. I did drag an old Commer out of a barn many years ago. That was a race car truck as well, like
right.
Q2, 1950.
That's a Q.
Super Poise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the bonneted sort of Super Poise.
Right,
it was, you know.
yeah,
So I do
yeah,
like the old Commers, but it wasn't a two-stroke. It just had the big sire valve straight six in it, like out of the big Humber Imperials, the Pullman sort of engine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've got a soft spot for these. So has it got living accommodation in the back now?
Yes,
have you converted it?
Bed and a toilet all in there.
Right, so fully sorted for a weekend like this, then, aren't you?
Ideal.
That's beautiful, that is. Yeah, I like that a lot. Alongside the maxi loader, we've got another two-stroke TS3 powered Commer. What a treat that is. These, I do love these tin-fronted, these old tin-fronted Commers. They're just phenomenal looking machines. We can have a quick peer inside the immaculate cab. There's the all important badge. We've seen a few Leylands already in here. We've got a little Arctic and Leyland Chieftain on a W plate. Quite a late example of the breed. And there's the hitch. Like I was saying before, these little Arctics. So there's the hitch under there. Again, I'm pretty sure that's got living accommodation in the back there. Beautifully turned out in the livery of ICI, the chemical company. Let's just keep heading down here past the Renault. We have an AEC Marathon 2. Lorries were starting to get larger and larger, taller and taller by this point in time. This is early 1980s. Of course that's much newer and even taller again. So we've got big, medium, small. But small is perfect, small is beautiful, and that is the case with this. I know I get a bit excited sometimes looking at some of these old lorries, but wow, that is incredible. Tate and Lyle liveried Commer TS3 root diesel power, and that huge exhaust on the front there is usually the giveaway that you're looking at a TS3 powered early Commer. Again, Arctic, so you've got like a bit of a swan deck type trailer on the back there. Beautifully turned out in midnight blue. Fleet number 717. Yeah. Many years ago I contacted them in Australia. He used to regularly send me photographs that he took on farms and places way out in the bush, and there was all sorts of old Commers just lying around. And whether more recent scrap drives in recent years has probably cut their numbers somewhat, but as far as I can tell there are still lots of old Commers in Australia. Maybe they survived better over there due to the climate. It just got parked up, and maybe people had more space as well, so there wasn't quite that much pressure to free up some space, so you just push it into a corner or the far corner of your property and leave it there, and as a result, certainly up until a few years ago at least, there were still lots of these old Commers over there, some restored but most just sat around hoping for restoration. But that is a beautiful old lorry. That is just great. Next to the Commer, a few later lorries. ERF, another one of Edwin Richard Foden's creations. Well, whether he was still around in the early 1980s, probably not. We've got a Scania here, 112M. ERF again. And again, fantastic liveries. Isn't that just great? Foden, like I say, arch rival of ERF back in the day. And another Commer, this one a slightly later one, maxi load with a Roots TS engine, originally for Rugby Portland Cement. The cab's very similar to that of that maxi load that we were looking at before. Clearly had a few paint jobs over the years. There's a bit of orange showing under this black overcoat that it wears now. Yeah. Great that that survived. Okay, let's carry on along here with a classic Volvo, an F80, or F88 rather. These are quite popular now in preservation. Of course, these are the kind of vehicles that a lot of owners of old lorries now can associate with lorries of the 70s and 1980s, that kind of thing. Whereas the earlier lorries, the pre-war lorries, not so many people can sort of relate to them directly, beautiful as they are. I think I must be a bit odd because I actually prefer lorries that predate me rather than the ones I grew up with, but everyone to their own. Look at this stunning Leyland here, absolutely immaculate. Look at the paint finish on that. That's a proper show truck, isn't it? Leyland road train. I'm sure they never came out of the factory that stunningly in condition. A good old British Leyland symbol there. So I mentioned Ford D-Series when we were looking at the Bedford TKs earlier, and here we have a Ford D-Series fire truck. About 1979-ish. Probably fairly low mileage, as most of these fire appliances were. This next one is badged up or signed up as long vehicle for very good reason. Look at that, Central Electricity Generating Board, the CEGB Eastern Division Emergency Power Supply Unit. Grief, what a monster that is. You won't want to go over any bumpy ground in that because you could easily ground it out. Or very small bridges, but I guess you won't be taking something like this over very small bridges, I'm guessing. Mighty, mighty old vehicle this is. What is it? Powered by Gardner. And there it is. And what is it that we are looking at? I think it is an Atkinson. And this is an Atkinson Venturer. Gardner 240 powered. Wow, that's a proper bit of kit that is. Oh, another FG. This time badged up as the Leyland FG. Like I said before, they were Austin and Morris, and then that became BMC FG, and then these late ones were badged up as Leyland. This is quite late actually, so mid to late 1970s, something like that. Again with a Thrupney bit cab, and these very handy curvy windows here which helps you park in tight spaces. What a bonny little truck that is. Not very big at all, you could easily fit that on most driveways. Elf, Sternal, Speedwell, antifreeze. Can we see in through there? Very airy cab. And again, you can just see how useful those little curvy windows down there were. Really distinctive and interesting little truck that is. I do like the look of those a lot. We saw a couple of these driving in before, so let's have a closer look at these parrot-nosed, so-called Dodges of the late 1940s, early 1950s, something like that. The Dodges we've got at home are both American built, but these are British built. Some of these I think did have the side valve straight six engine that was originally built for the American market. Not quite sure what these ones are powered by. Dodge Q is their official name. Parrot Nose was the unofficial name, but Dodge Q. Q is where the British assembled Dodges were assembled. Dodge had a plant down there and they were built up there. Yeah, nice, very nice indeed. A cab reminds me very much of the Leyland Comet in some respects. A couple more up here. This one we saw driving in the livery of BRS, British Road Services again. Beautifully turned out. There we go. Dodge Q. Another one up on the end here. Very striking two-tone paint scheme. Isn't that a belter? Very distinctive bonnet shape on these. Look at the curve to the bonnet and the matching curve to the windscreens. Of course, two-piece windscreens back in those days. No wraparound windows, no curved glass back then. Like I say, Hell drivers use these extensively in that particular film. Stanley Baker. And a very young Sean Connery was also in Hell Drivers, and these are the vehicles that they ran, the old parrot-nosed Dodges. It's a great old black and white film. I would recommend hunting that down maybe on Talking Pictures TV, a channel where so many great old films are shown, the old black and white films, and every now and again Hell Drivers pops into the listings, and it's well worth catching if you haven't seen it before. It really is an interesting film. And I was saying before about how sort of broadly similar, apart from the shape of the bonnet obviously, how broadly similar these are at first glance to the Leyland Comet. And down the hill here we have a Leyland Comet, that breakdown recovery truck that we saw driving in before. Handily on the door it gives us the age. Leyland Comet 90 of 1953. Wow. Bit of shade, that's very welcome today. It's going to be a hot one. What a great little recovery vehicle that is. Big heavy recovery gear, crane on the back there, Harvey Frost. That was a name synonymous with all types of recovery gear, jacks, lifting equipment and so on for many, many a year. And quite often you see these restored old vehicles still with Harvey Frost gear on the back. That's a very neat bit of living accommodation as well. Even with a bay window. Brilliant. If I reach for my copy of British Lorries, E.J. Smith, price 2 and 6, 2 shillings and 6pence, we'll see that there is an entry for the Leyland Comet 90. Here we go. Leyland Comet 90. This one has a 14-foot 2-inch wheelbase chassis and a 1,000-gallon tank. So yeah, there we go. Made famous in this little old Ian Allen book. I'm guessing early 1960s, something like that, I would have thought. Yeah, great stuff. Alright, now it's the I Spy Road Transport's chance to shine. Now, the car versions of this booklet that I featured before, the entries are makes and models of cars, and you tick those off and score yourself as you go along as you spot the particular cars. But in this one, it is by type of body. It doesn't list any makes, manufacturers of lorries and models and so on. It just gives you the different variants of the bodywork, such as the variety of vehicles. So we've got this interesting little pickup version of the Bedford CA, for example, there. But opposite, we have this, the breakdown vehicle. So in the 1950s, if you were clutching this in the back of your Ford console while you were driving away on holiday and you spotted this magnificent Leyland on your travels, you could tick this one off. It says here, breakdown vehicle. If your car is damaged on the road, the breakdown vehicle may come to rescue. I spy the crane for raising one end of the car and the little towing trolley on which the front or rear axle of a car will fit. Now someone has actually filled this in. They spotted this on the 16th of August in Thirsk. Sadly, no year is given. Name of the firm, the Greens Breakdown. And there we have a little drawing of a typical breakdown wagon, complete with a little towing dolly on the road behind it. I don't know if this one's got one of those little towing dollies with it, but it certainly has a mighty Harvey Frost crane in the back, just like that one. Now the building that the Leyland is parked outside of is this place, and this houses the collection of cars belonging to the Jaguar Daimler Heritage Trust. And this lower level area here, which you can't actually get to as a member of the public, is their workshop area. Now I'm not quite sure if we can see what this mighty machine is over here. What car is that? WK7343. There's clearly some cars are there which aren't Jaguars. Got all the workshop tools, kits and equipment here. But yeah, there's all manner of interesting things. Obviously bits and pieces in pieces. So can't really see very well. We've got a 1904 Vauxhall just on the ramp there. Not sure if we can see that. Doesn't work very well filming through glass on a sunny day. We've got an XJS with flared bubble arches. I wonder what the story is with that particular car. Oh, there's some rare stuff in here. There's a Series 2 E-type there being worked on. You just about see that, I think. A few cars over the back, hidden away, out of sight, including some very rare cars at the back there. If we get a chance, we'll have a walk around in there later. I'm not quite sure if we can get in there today, but I think we probably can. Here's one of the Group C race cars of the 1980s, and just parked casually alongside it, minding its own business. It's a Jaguar D-type. Wow, look at that. Wow. What a phenomenal car that is. Oh, well, we've had a bit of a walk around the vehicles that are here today on Saturday, which I'm told is kind of an unofficial setup day, really. So if you're thinking of coming here to Gaydon for the classic and commercial vehicle it's probably best to come on the Sunday. But yeah, I'm told that there are more vehicles expected a little bit later in the day. So I think what we'll do now, I think I'll probably nip in there and have a quick walk around the main British Motor Museum while I'm here. It's getting very, very warm, so I won't mind cooling off a little bit. So we'll go in there. I might include this as a separate video on the channel a little bit later, further down the road. And then after I've had a walk around in there and a look at some of the cars that are on display, I'll come back out here again and just see what else has turned up in the meanwhile. Hang on a minute, don't leave just yet. I've spotted some old Volvos over here, close to the Bedford Enthusiast Club stand, so let's go and have a quick look at those before we go. Well, I certainly wasn't expecting to see these here today. Look at this, I've never ever seen one of these in the metal before. This is the estate car version of the Volvo PV. Long-termers to all classic car will know that I used to have a PV 544 in that colour. That now belongs to someone else on the old classic car forum that I also run. Same colour as that, but with the curvy sort of beetleback styling that the PVs were so well known for. But I've never seen one of these. I think they call these the duets, the estate car version of the PV. They also did a van as well. I don't think they ever sold these here in the UK. Left-hand drive. Wow, that is a rare car. Wow. On slightly wider section steel wheels. Yeah. That's great. So effectively that's the estate car version of the PV 544 with the same probably 1800cc I think engine that went into the Amazons and so on. These were sold alongside the Amazons for many years, but this is a much earlier design. The 444 that came along before dates to the early 1950s. Mine I think was about 1953, I think, quite an early one. This is a fair bit later, it's a 65 registration. Yeah, what a treat to see that. And alongside that Volvo we have this. The Volvo 144 Saloon. Don't see too many of these. Dad used to have one of these when I was a kid. Slightly different front. There was the model before this. Before they went to that shape of grille, they did change it a few times during production. It was a helicopter. But anyway, yeah, so this is the 140 series. The 144 was the 4-door. And some of the markets had the 142, which was the 2-door. But I don't think we ever had the 142 strictly for sale here. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong on that, but I've got a feeling, as far as saloons went, we just had the saloons, then we had the 145s, which were the estates. Alongside that, we've got a fairly late example of the 240 estate, and a pair of P1800S's. This one's a 65. Hope you can see that, it's very bright in the sun. The sun's just come out. Yeah, that's a 65, and this is a much earlier example. This has got the earlier hubcaps with the red centres. This is a Jensen bodied car. It's got the ST1 number plate on. Whether this is actually the car from the Saint, probably not, but this is one with the cow horn bumpers and a Jensen body.
You know that PV, that duet, you spotted another one round the back. There's a Really?
Look at that lovely early Volvo badge there. Yeah, these bodies were by Jensen.
Only one there, yeah. There weren't one at the National Show.
So that's a fair bit earlier than the other one. Visually they look very similar, but in detail there are lots of little differences between that and that. But at first glance they look very similar. But yeah, very swish. Jensen built these bodies. These are the cow horn bumpers they call those. Yeah, what a treat to see that two together. Very early and very late examples. But the car for me, there's this duet on the end here. What a rarity that is. I must get some photos of that before I go. Well, it's certainly been an interesting return trip here to Gaydon for the Classic and Vintage Commercial Vehicle Show. Next time I'll come on day 2 rather than day 1, because I think there'll be a little bit more here on day 2. But there's still been some real Bobby Dazzlers, including this fantastic Albion. This is probably my pick of the day, closely followed by that Ford Model BB and the E88W panel van that we saw much earlier in this particular video. I have had a wander around inside the museum itself, and also the Jaguar Daimler Heritage Trust collection over in the silver building at the back there. They will be in a separate video coming along a little bit later. This video is purely looking at the commercial vehicle gathering here today at Gaydon, and yeah, it's been really good. It's been a really interesting return visit. I think the last time I came here was probably, I don't know, 2010, 2009, something like that. So it's been way too long in revisiting and just seeing what old lorries turn up for this very, very popular event. If I could, I'd come back tomorrow, but I'm not able to, sadly. But this video should just give you a bit of an overview of the type of vehicles you can expect to see here at Gaydon whenever they hold these classic and vintage commercial vehicle rallies. And as I said before, I think I would probably recommend, if you have the choice, come on day 2, because it's going to be a lot busier tomorrow. Anyway, thanks very much for watching this video. Please check out some of the other classic lorry and car videos that are on the Old Classic Car channel. Like, subscribe, comments, and so on. Always welcome as ever. And there'll be many more videos along very, very soon. So bye for now.